Move on to 7B. So consider a motion to approve new solid waste building design and staff to provide other updates.
Well, Council President Bizey, Mayor Dowse, council members, thank you for seeing me today. I'm here to talk about the Red Wing Waste Campus, the resource recovery options that we have here. If you recall, on June 7th, 2017, we had a fire out there. And the fire basically destroyed the 1981 incinerator building. So this affected basically all of the tip floor. It affected the locker area. It affected all the mechanical stuff within the building, and it is unusable at this time. So we're kind of at a point right now where we were halfway through phase one, which was approved by council, which was the refurbishment of the building. Oops. And this is the building we're talking about. It's kind of a poor picture. I had the sunlight behind there. But basically, it's the incinerator building. This is the tip floor area that was affected, and then this is the back side, the shop area that was affected. So, as I said, we were in the middle of refurbishing the 1981 building. It was a building that had been up and used for garbage since 1981. And the design that we were using for that building, for the refurbishment, was basically based upon what the building structure was before the fire. It did not meet the permit requirements that it needed to. We were grandfathered in for a lot of these things. The ceiling was too low of an operating height. We're supposed to be at 25 feet. I think we're around 20. And the employee areas needed updating badly. So the proposal that we were going to do was basically one where we were going to update this operation, and that meant that we were going to have multiple areas for tip floors. Well, when the fire happened, it kind of put that all on the back burner. And what it really did was it gave us an opportunity. Now, if I was asked whether I would rather have an opportunity like this and not have a fire, or not have a fire, I would say not have a fire every time. A fire is a terrible thing. It really put us back, but now that it has happened, I think it does present some opportunities for us here. And I'm going to just jump right into what we're proposing here for this building. So if you look at this building, the new areas, well, the area that is all the white area right here. So whatever you see in white was the former incinerator building. So this little bump out right here in front, that is the office space that we have right here. The office, the break room. As you see, you can kind of see, I'm trying to use my cursor here. I don't know if you can see that in front of you. But the cursor right here, I'm trying to show you is where the former, where our proposed tip floor space was. All right, and then we had locker areas over here, a shop over here, another shop over here, and this was kind of a vestibule area. So this would have been our tip floor space right here, and then we would have had another second tip floor space over here. What we're talking about doing right now, or what we're proposing to council, is basically adding on to the front of this building, about 20 feet to the front of the building, and as I said, the front of the building right here. Oops. And making that into usable space for our operations. And also adding on this gray area over here, which would be a loadout area, which is currently void of any kind of building structure right now. So what would we get for this? Well, here's the drawing that we're kind of working off of. It's the same drawing as the one I just had up, but it's in color now. The salmon colored area right here is really an expansion of our tip floor. So we're consolidating our tip floor into one large area. Now the benefit of this for our operations is it's going to be a completely free span area or clear span area. So there won't be any columns in the middle of the floor that could potentially be hit by our operators with the loaders. So we have one consolidated tip floor. It's much greater in size than what we have or what we had projected previously. And what it really does is it allows us to have a lot more capacity for future growth here, so that we can have more waste on the floor coming in so that we can process this. We're not bound by what we can hold within the area anymore. The other very big improvement for us here is this green loadout area here. So this is part of the area that we would ask to be increased in size. And what this represents right here is this represents an area that we would have that would be below grade. So that we would pull in a semi from this direction over here, and it will go down grade so that we could actually top load the semi with material. Right now, what kind of happens out there is when we want to try to top load semis, our loader kind of hits right about there, and it just has to flop it, hope it kind of flops in. With this design here, the height of the semi-trailer we brought down about 6 feet, and you'll be able to actually put material in there. It'll drop in there, so you can have better loading opportunities right there. We'll be using that loadout area there to take out our process or non-processable wastes, and we can use it for a lot of other items too in the future if we choose to do some changes to our recycling system. The gold area here represents where we would have new break room, office space, and locker area. And then this area right here is just a corridor. And this gray area right here represents a consolidated garage area, so that we can actually do a shop area, so we can actually do our work on our semis and trailers. The blue area here then represents basically just areas where we'll be having conveyance. And then the green area at the bottom here represents where we would load out our material. So we would have 2 semis parked right here and right here. As soon as one semi is loaded up, we switch the conveyor and it starts loading up the second one. What this does is basically it allows us to operate continuously instead of stopping to bring out the trailer and then parking a new one back in place. We can continually operate without having to shut down our operations. So, the League of Minnesota Cities has basically given us, we have basically 3 options for how we proceed here. The first option would be, getting a fair market value for the building that had burnt on June 7th. We don't know what that would be, but the value would be based upon the building's condition at the time of the fire, which would be pretty low, I would imagine. The second option that we have here is for the League of Minnesota Cities to pay for a replacement of the existing building built up to code. So it would be the building that we had in there before the fire, but built up to code in terms of ceiling height, and I believe the lockers would be improved somewhat too. And then the last option that we're presenting here is building this enhanced version that I brought for you here today. And what that would entail is basically the city would be responsible for paying the difference between the enhanced version and then the existing building version that was there. So to see what that kind of looks like, we have a table here to show you that what the cost of phase 1 was approved initially. So when council first approved phase 1 building renovation, the cost was $2.6 million. The fire hit us, and at the time of the fire, we had spent $1.2 million for the construction and another $179,000 for engineering, Stantec services. We'd add another $40,000 onto the cost for an upgraded sprinkler system, and that leaves us with the remaining balance from the phase 1 allocation of $1.134 million. So when we're talking about the phase 1 redesign, what we're talking about is basically an increase in building costs of about $1.2 million. Then you have design costs, it's going to be about $327,000. You have management costs, equipment changes, contingency, And what you have at the end of all that is a price tag of about $1.852 million. These are all approximations at this point. We haven't put it up for bid, but we're fairly confident that it's going to be in the neighborhood of $1.8 million. We have an unspent allocation left from phase one of $1.134 million. And that gives us a need for an extra budget estimate of $717,287. So that's what it would cost, essentially, to put this here, this new system here, into place. So I'll just read this straight off here. I know you don't like that, but staff is seeking motion by council to approve moving ahead with a new design of the incinerator building. For the new building design to be implemented, the city would have to pay an out-of-pocket of approximately $717,000, more than the $2.6 million, which has already been approved for phase one renovations. So that is the first thing that we're trying to get an answer from council for. Moving on to the second item here is the pole building discussion. So since we lost basically all of our shop space with the fire, what that has put us in a position of is a place where we don't have a shop to operate from. Now, we've looked at options of, taking the equipment, sending it up to the cities whenever we needed to do maintenance on it, bringing in a trailer that would have locker and bathroom facilities for our employees to use. And we found that just taking the shredder up to our vendor 1 week every month, the cost would be about $15,000. And the bathroom locker combination was going to be about $9,000 a month in rent. So what we did is we proposed to the League of Minnesota Cities Insurance Adjuster, or I don't know what her title is actually, the individual that's working with us from the League of Minnesota Cities. We proposed putting up a temporary building. The temporary building would essentially be a 40 by 80 pole shed. Okay, it would be put up just south of the MRF, which is on the back side, the exact opposite side of where the front of the incinerator building is. No, I'm not supposed to use directions, but it'd be on the exact opposite side. You can't really see it from the road or anything. And it would involve basically a 40 by 80 pole shed that'd be heated, insulated. We'd have electrical coming in there. We would have a concrete pad put down there. And we would do all of our shop work within that building right there. The total cost for that is about $300,000. This would be reimbursed to the city by the insurer. The cost of it would be less the salvage value. Now, what I mean by that is that since it's a temporary building, the insurer is saying, well, there could be, money gotten back from that building after you're done using it for these purposes. We estimate that cost to be significantly less than $100,000. It'll probably be more in the line of, $50,000, somewhere in that area. But I can't say for sure because we just don't know what that cost for salvage will be. So what that means is that the city would have to pay back the insurer somewhere in the range of under $100,000 for the $300,000 building that they would erect for us. The city, the solid waste department and the refuse, just the solid waste division does have $200,000 in the CIP, in the 2017 CIP for a commodity storage building. So there is money set aside for this in this year, and we have not used that yet. The other thing that we'll need to discuss here is the replacement of the roof. When the fire came through, it impacted the MRF, that's where we do most of the processing, by basically burning everything from 10 feet down, okay, from the ceiling. And that means it burnt off our vapor barrier up there. So, and all the electrical and mechanical, that's about 10 feet down from the roof. So we have two options here. One option is to basically replace the vapor barrier from the top down, which means you take off the roof, you take off the condensation blanket, you take off the insulation, and then you replace the vapor barrier. Or another option would be to erect a bunch of scaffolding all throughout the whole system and replace the vapor barrier that way. We have been working with CPMI, and CPMI has done a very good job of getting to the bottom of this this question here by talking to vendors, contractors, and they have basically said that, look, it's so much more work to try to put up all that scaffolding and then replace that vapor barrier than it was just to take off the roof and replace the roof. So how we're going to try to move forward with this is put a bid out for a replacement of the roof option, or replacement of the roof with an alternative of putting in a vapor barrier instead. So we'll pose that to the bidding parties, and whatever they come back with their bid, that's we would recommend we go with then. The cost of this would approximately be about $300,000 again, and this would also be reimbursed to the city by the League of Minnesota Cities. So I want to talk real quickly about the totality of the cost of this project. Okay. If you'll recall, this is a 3-phase project. For some reason, we started at phase 0. But phase 0 was the decontamination, deconstruction of the solid waste boiler operations. Taking that out. We were required to do that by our permit, our solid waste boiler permit. The next phase then was the phase 1, which was refurbishing the building. And then the final phase is the phase of us putting in the necessary equipment to meet the needs of the Xcel Energy grant and to meet the needs of our fuel user, our Xcel Energy. And what we have here basically is a project that in totality will be about $10.5 million. Now, how we're paying for this, or how we propose paying for this, is through a $3 million be used from local government aid that we received for the shredder. And then another $2 million would come from the Xcel Energy Renewable Development Grant, Renewable Energy Development Grant. The final $5.5 million then would come from an interfund loan or geo-bonding. So I just want to be clear about, you know, the totality of the cost of this project. It's kind of it's a linked project, you know, and it doesn't stand very well alone. It needs to have all phases of it to really move forward. Now, why I think this is something that we should probably be moving forward is that I think there's been a strong amount of support from the community for how we've managed garbage up to this point, and how we've managed garbage basically since 1948. We have very high rankings there within the community survey. It's important to the community to be more sustainable, and really this project is, you know, at its core as sustainable as it gets. We're trying to reduce our impact on the environment by keeping waste out of the landfill and recovering resources that are in the waste stream. And of course, we are using that waste as a renewable energy source right here within the city of Red Wing, the Xcel plant. So staff is recommending to council at this time that we approve moving ahead with a new building design to replace the incinerator building, and approve bidding of the construction of a new pole building at the solid waste campus and a new MRF roof replacement package. With that said, do you have any questions?
Approximated cost by who?
By our engineer and our construction manager, CPMI.
He's going off the industry standards. It's an estimate. We cannot tell you that's for sure, but he has not gone on the low end of any of these estimates. And the individual that's a consultant that's designing phase 2 and has helped redesign the actual incinerator building has dealt with these kind of situations pretty much throughout the United States. He's done a couple in Minnesota, so he's fairly adept at understanding what the construction costs are.
Is there no use for, for continued use of the pole barn building?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought for sure I would have said something about that. After the pole barn is done being used, we would be using it for the refuse and recycling storage building for basically their trucks in the wintertime. You need to keep those trucks heated in the wintertime, otherwise the hydraulics kind of freeze up and be they're very difficult to manage and get going if they're left outside. So it's kind of a need that we've had for a long time out at the Waste Campus.
Dean.
I'm going to ask you the same question I asked you this afternoon. We're going to basically wind up borrowing from somewhere $5.5 million to complete this project. How much is that going to affect the average homeowner's bill?
You know, it's really dependent upon how much waste we're able to bring into the city. So the more waste that we're able to contract for to come into the city, the better off we are. And really, I think we're kind of looking at our tip even point at about 30,000 tons. Okay, so that's another 10,000 tons more than we're getting right now. And anything above 10,000 tons is very beneficial to us being able to attack that debt that we're going to incur. Now, the question is, where do we get those tons from? Well, we have several options that we're currently working with right now. One being, the county. The county is our best option. We want to have an agreement with the county such that all waste generated within the county is designated to our facility. There's a lot of incentives for the county to do this right now, and for the city too, frankly. The most important one being that the state has opened up the closed landfill program if the county and the city can make this happen. So if the county and the city get together and we can get a waste designation plan such that the waste comes to the city and the city is able to process that waste, we can get that Bench Street landfill into the closed landfill program, which is a significant carrot that they're holding out for us. So I think that over the long haul that the benefit of getting in that closed landfill program will be seen by the county and the city as too big of a benefit to pass up. And it really is. I mean, the closed landfill program, I don't believe has let a landfill into its arms since 1994 when it was closed.
Yeah,
and for it to be open specifically for the Bench Street landfill is really a special thing.
So basically what you're saying is there's a high probability that the bill's we're not going to have to raise the fees on the bill. But there is a possibility.
Yes, thank you.
Can I clarify? Because there's a number of things that are contingent upon that. One of them would be XL, taking the amount of waste we want to bring to XL, which we're in negotiations with them and just started that again. Okay, so that's also. So our waste being disposed of at XL versus being disposed at another facility that would charge more money. So that, and depending on where we end up with this final number, that does affect what that tip fee is. In initial discussions, we talked about a tip fee of at a minimum of $100 and upwards of $125. But that is based on a lesser amount of tonnage, only the tonnage that we are guaranteed if this would go through with the county. So I don't want to say that bill is not going to go up, because it's going to go up eventually anyway, because our costs continue to rise. Fuel rises, electricity rises, so your cost is going to go up. So I'm not going to say that our refuse collection rates will not go up, because that's not correct. They are going to go up. It's just how much waste we get. If, as Jeff says, we get 30,000 and then we get more than that, then that's when that model really shows the difference. And we sat down with the finance department and run the numbers, and we feel very comfortable with the numbers, but We don't have the waste yet, and I think that's what I want to make sure you all understand that.
So what is our, now you're saying between 100 and 120 a ton, which is quite a bit of an increase. How does that compare to Olmsted County? What's Olmsted County charging right now?
They're still higher. I think they're up around 129.
Okay.
I need to, qualify that. They may have a lower tip fee, but there's a lot of service fees that are added onto it, such that makes the tip fee quite a bit higher. Right.
No, we all get it. I mean, everybody plays that solid waste tax thing. I mean, we're all doing it.
Right.
But the total tip fee, if you take a ton down there, it's going to cost you roughly $129, $130.
Yes.
Okay.
Peggy?
I just want to say, having worked on this issue with the county and their solid waste committee for several years, and then the ongoing thing that has gone on here, I think, number one, we're extremely fortunate that we've got that $5 million that doesn't come from the city, that is LGA, which was specifically earmarked for the solid waste campus. And the XL thing, where we didn't come in at the top to begin with, but eventually it got to us through a lot of work that Public Works put in. That's kind of, the first thing. The second thing is there was a great deal of opposition to letting us into the closed landfill program. And if we're not in the closed landfill program, there's a big risk of, if there is something found in the landfill that's, what's the word I'm looking for, Jeff?
That impacts the groundwater?
That impacts the groundwater. That alone could cost us $10 million. So being in the closed landfill is just a huge deal. And then the other thing is that over the course of this time, we've really, I think, made great strides from an environmental standpoint. I mean, they're moving towards single source recycling, which is a really big deal. I mean, people will be easier to recycle, so we probably will see that go up, looking at more composting, all things that I think are significant for the community. And I guess I tend to view our solid waste operation as a real health and safety kind of thing, that we are promoting the health of our community when we do these things.
John?
Thank you. Nice presentation, by the way, Jeff. Can you just, I got two questions actually. So can you kind of give me a sense of scale, what this buys you in terms of capacity? In other words, are you going to be able to do 3 times the amount of garbage as you would with the original design?
I think that we could probably do, it really depends on how many shifts you add to it and our ability to get rid of the waste and have an outlet for the waste. So theoretically, yeah, we could do a significant amount more, and I would like to say, I'd just like to say a significant amount more, but it really is dependent upon the ability to get rid of it. I don't want to be taking in 80,000 tons if I only have 30,000 tons of capacity in Excel. So it's a balancing act that we want to do here. What it does, though, is I think it allows us to operate much more efficiently, more safely, and it keeps us. It allows us to hopefully pull more material from the waste stream ultimately, so that we can have more fuel go down there and less recyclables go into that facility.
Is there any way to quantify that in terms of quality of waste, or
quantify the quantity of
just
waste?
I get the safety bit, and getting rid of the columns and making a better environment and all that. But I guess I'm trying to rationalize why we're spending more money and what are we buying, what are we getting for that?
What we're getting is really and ease of operations. I think it's a sustainable question is what we're getting. We're not operating within a garage anymore. We're operating an actual waste facility. I think for a long time we've had, and I got this from our consultant. He said, you guys have a farmer mentality. We can make it work. We can make it work. It's not sustainable to continue that way. You have to actually, build the operations so that you can actually manage this appropriately, and not this can-do attitude is what his.
But John, we could say if you went 2 shifts, now, that there's a certain amount of stuff you'd have to do with that. You'd have to make sure that your labor source is still available to put that kind of a number together, the same labor source we have now at the correctional facility. You could say you could run 2 shifts and process 50,000 tons of waste versus the 20-some thousand that we're processing now. If you wanted a number like that.
That's a little bit.
And we can say that. But,
Okay.
There's variables.
Yeah, no, I'm not trying to pin you down.
No, I just want to make sure we understand there are variables with the labor force to make that work, okay? That's what makes this work, is that labor force, the fact that we're paying, basically $90,000 for 11 employees, okay?
Yeah,
So that's
essentially, we can push a lot of waste through that facility if we had to, and by increasing the tip floor space, we do have that opportunity to push even more waste through there. But I think, like Rick's saying, we still have to be dependent upon where the waste goes, and having that outlet for the waste and making sure that we have that. I think that we can safely say that we can do 40 to 50,000 tons through the facility.
So, and my second question is for Marshall. Marshall, I mean, are you, with your 2.5% levy graph that you've shown us for the last 2 workshops, and you had the gold bars where the general obligation bonds went up and then went back down. This is pretty early in that whole cycle. If you add $1 million to that, what does that do to your projections in terms of the impact on the levy?
It's a great question. When we talk about this, this is an enterprise. So if we don't anticipate putting any more taxpayer dollars in there per se, not from the levy. So when we talk about if we were to bond or interfund loan, they will be repaid back solely from revenues derived from this facility. They wouldn't incorporate taxpayer dollars, so it was not inherent or built into that model. I wanted to mention one thing. A couple questions got asked that I could maybe add to a little bit if you'll allow me, or if you want to go to the other members first.
Go ahead.
Just to put it in context, I believe it was Councilmember Hove that asked the question. If everything goes south and we have the status quo as far as garbage delivery is concerned and same quantity tonnage, if you will. To put it in context, we issued about $4 million worth of debt. I think it was back in 2010. And to support that $4 million, and I believe we're talking about $5 million now, we have a $3.27 charge per month per residential household to support that $4 million. That'll help put it in context. And then, I apologize, I'm a little ill tonight. I also wanted to mention that Councilmember Becker's question about inputs and outputs. We actually have some fairly sophisticated modeling that we use to come to some of these decision points that are being recommended to you now. And we could model for the City Council anything you wanted to as far as tonnages and what those requirements would be. But what Jeff is proposing now and what we can see, in the near future is probably the optimal model, because you'll get to a point where you start taking too much waste and like Jeff said, now it has no place to go, and other factors start to make that economies of scale work downward for you. So does that help at all? I guess the bottom line is we can model anything, but we need to be cognizant about we reach an optimum, and I think that's what Jeff's presenting to you tonight. Thank you.
Evan?
Yeah, Jeff, you kind of were a little bit ambiguous about the waste designation agreement. I thought that was a little more farther down the pipe.
Well, where we're at right now, do you want to?
Yeah, maybe I might answer that since I'm spending the majority of time with that. So, we have a solid waste subcommittee, and so does the county. The county has asked us to give them an agreement. We hired our garbage attorney, as I like to affectionately call him, and it's not Amy. And he's put together a proposal that we sent to the county. They've reviewed it. They've got some concerns. They got a couple in there that say deal breakers. But we're working with the state, with SIG from the state. And in a very short time period, I'm hoping that the elected officials will be sitting down in the room with a number of staff folks and trying to hammer that agreement out. And that's one of the things that have to be done. That's a waste haulers agreement. And the county still has to do the solid waste designation ordinance. They have the plan approved by the state. MPCA has approved their plan, but they actually have to go forward with the ordinance. Staff had requested that we try to have a haulers agreement in place first, so that when they go out, they know what they're dealing with when they go out into the public with that plan. So, you know, it's summertime and people are building roads and doing a lot of things. This gets pushed off, and you know, now we're going to try to get to it. We have the whole landfill issue, the closure of the landfill. We just received a notice from the state today about when they would want things done to start the process to get their landfill and ours, is because we're co-permitted with the ash site. So things are starting to move right now. I know I may have been saying that for, Dean might think 12 years now, but there is serious discussions and people are serious about trying to make it work.
Can I ask Rick, Rick, didn't the all waste designation process also get slowed down because of the fire and our having to go back?
Yeah, that's not sugarcoat. When Jeff talked about the fire, that stopped us in our tracks because we didn't know what we never had a fire of this magnitude. We didn't know what our insurance covered, how it covers, how it was going to work, and which brings up a point I'd like to make. We're bringing a lot of stuff tonight, I know, but these are things that have taken forever to get this far, and trying to get it figured out internally, and then to have our construction manager do his job and find a consultant to do the engineering that we need to do, and then getting the League of Minnesota Insurance Trust to agree that they will pay these things has taken us significantly longer time than we had inspected. Now, with that said, we're still trying to shoot for a January 1, 2019 timeframe. You know, it's November here in a week and a half. We have to get going if we're going to get a building built and the equipment brought into that facility and have an operational facility by January 1 of 2019.
Along with that, you also mentioned another, I don't know what to say, choke point maybe, which would be can Excel process that? And you said you were just starting that conversation. Can you give me a little more background on that?
Yeah, so RRT, which was a facility, it still is, but it's been bought out by Ramsey Washington counties. So they now own the main producer of the garbage that comes, the refuse drive fuel that comes to Excel. Ramsey and Washington County bought that facility from a company called RRT. So they've been negotiating with those folks because they're the main provider. We're talking 320,000 tons.
They provide the majority of the waste.
And, we're going to provide 20 or 30,000 tons, so believe it or not, we're not number one in line there when it comes to negotiations. So they're working with the county. I happen to discuss with Jim Keene, the fellow that manages their facilities, and he indicated that they'll be coming to us in the next week or two to have the discussion about capacity. They know what we want for capacity. It's not going to be a shock what we're asking. We've told them many times if we're talking about 30,000 tons that we need 20.
Well, we'd like to have 30,000 plus tons of capacity at Excel if we could. So I think we have 15 right now. And I've spoken to someone over there today, and they're aware of, like Rick said, they're aware that we're looking for a greater amount of capacity at their facility. Now, our backup plan for that is to work with Olmsted County to bring waste down there. But ideally, of course, we'd like to bring it to Excel because it's so much closer.
Yeah. So, for a question for Marshall. So you had said that for the last bond of $4 million was $3.27 per household per month. So is it safe to assume that this $5.5 million bond would be similar?
That'd be accurate. Obviously, it'd be about 20% more, 25% more.
And that would only be if we couldn't meet the bond payment with the tip fee. The idea is to make the bond payment with the tip fee. What Marshall was trying to relay is our worst-case scenario, kind of a question Dean asked. Worst-case scenario would be, 4.25, somewhere in that range, if the tip fee did not cover that cost of the improvements that we're talking about.
Because that goes back to you and me and.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Dustin.
I'll make a motion to authorize staff to proceed with the new design of the incinerator building, which is going to be demolished.
Second.
Comment?
What?
Yeah, nothing commenting. So what are you asking tonight? Are you asking for authorization for the building, or are you just asking for authorization for the design of the building?
Designed to move, for authorization to move forward with the idea that we're going to get 2 separate bids from the contractor. So there's going to be one bid that they're going to ask for the existing building, and one request for a building that will be the enhanced version that you see here.
So you'll be coming back?
Yes.
Okay.
So we had a motion and a second. Motion by Dustin, second by Peggy. Any other discussion? Okay. Motion by Dustin, second by Peggy. All in favor to authorize staff to proceed with a new design of the incinerator building, which is going to be demolished. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carried.
Do we need a motion on the?
Yes. So then the second part of the
We have a
request.
second
Yes.
part of it. So then we need a motion to authorize staff to let the bids for the roof construction on the Murph building and the pole barn with the cost reimbursed by the League of Minnesota Cities.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Peggy, second by Dean. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.